The number has a mythology before you have the money. You have been building it for years, quietly, without knowing you were building it, out of the things people say about it, and the way certain conversations change when you enter a room where someone already has it. $100,000. By the time it arrives, the number has already told you what it is supposed to feel like. What it actually does is something entirely different. And the gap between those two things is the education you did not know you were paying for. Part 1. The number. You are 26, and it is a Thursday evening in March, and you are sitting in a bar near the office with a man named Clive. Clive is 34. He runs a small consulting practice. 3 employees, good clients, difficult margins. Over the second drink of the night, he tells you that last year was the first year he cleared $100,000 in personal income after tax. He says it the way people say things they have been waiting a long time to say. Not loudly, not as performance, but with the specific, careful tone of someone placing a fragile object on a table. What did it feel like? You ask. He picks up his glass and thinks for a moment. Different than I thought, he says. For about a week. Then it just felt like the number I had. You nod. You file this away in the part of your mind that builds the mythology without asking your permission. The number is not really $100,000. The number is the composite thing you have been assembling for years. A meaning built from conversations you were adjacent to, from the way certain people changed after they crossed it, from the gap between the life you have now and the life you believe that number makes possible. For some people, $100,000 is safety, the end of the specific terror of a zero balance at the wrong moment. For others, it is arrival, the threshold between trying to become something and having become it. For others, it is proof, not of ability, but of legitimacy, which is the one thing money can approximate, but never fully provide. Not because the number is not real, because the meaning you have given it is entirely yours. And the meaning will not survive contact with the actual thing, which is the part no one thinks to mention until you are on the other side of it. The number is not the same number for everyone. For a woman in Nairobi, it is a different mass than for a man in Sydney. For someone carrying $38,000 in student loans, it is subtraction before it is addition. For someone already past $500,000, it is a rounding error, which is the specific arithmetic that separates the wealthy from everyone else, not the amounts, the denominators. A different Thursday, a different bar. Someone asks how close you are. Getting there, you say. The number means exactly what you need it to mean. Part 2. The day. You are 28. It is a Tuesday in October, and you are looking at your bank balance on a laptop on a desk in a flat, in a city where you have lived for 3 years and 3 months. The number on the screen is $103,400.17. You have been watching it approach this for 11 months. Now it is past it. You close the laptop. You open it again. The number is still there. You will do this 4 more times in the next 20 minutes. Close it, open it, confirm. Not because you expect it to have changed, but because the act of looking feels necessary in a way you cannot precisely explain. You text your friend Dex. The message says, "It happened." 3 minutes pass. "Say less," he replies. Then, after another pause, "Drinks tonight?" You say yes. You close the laptop. You make coffee. The coffee tastes the same as it always has. Here is what the feeling is. Exactly. It is not euphoria. It is not the scene you have imagined intermittently for years. The call to a parent, the screenshot. The pure, uncomplicated lightness of arrival. It is something quieter and stranger. It is the specific sensation of having carried a weight for so long that when it is finally gone, You do not feel lighter. You feel the shape of where the weight was, the outline of something absent. Not because you are ungrateful for what you have done, because the feeling of arrival is always a different shape than the feeling you rehearsed. You go for drinks with Dex. He buys the first round. You buy the second. You sit in the bar for 2.5 hours and discuss it for approximately 15 minutes. He asks 3 questions, you give 3 honest answers, and then both of you move on to something else, which is the correct response to a private achievement in a world that has no formal ceremony for this particular threshold. That night, you lie in bed in the same flat, in the same city. You feel something that is not peace, and not satisfaction, and not quite pride. It is closer to the sensation of a breath held for a very long time, finally released into a room that looks exactly the same as it did this morning. The ceiling is the same distance away. The feeling lasts 11 days. Part 3. The math. You are 28, and it is now late November, and you are sitting across from a man named Bertrand in an office on the 4th floor of a building in the financial district. Bertrand is 61. He is calm and efficient in the way that people who have had this conversation several hundred times are calm and efficient. He places a single sheet of paper on the desk between you and does not immediately hand it over. Before or after tax, you ask. After, he says. You've already paid. You look at the number at the top of the sheet, $103,400. The first item, Bertrand says, picking up a pen, is the emergency fund, 6 months of expenses based on your cost of living. He writes a number. $22,800. He underlines it twice. That is not an investment. That is insurance. He continues. The credit card balance at 19.4% APR, $11,200, costing you $181 a month in interest, which over a year is $2,172 in money that produces nothing. The student loan principal. The insurance gap. The car, which needs work before January. By the time Bertrand reaches the bottom of the page, it is covered in smaller numbers, and the smaller numbers added together equal most of the large one. Which leaves you, he says, capping his pen, approximately $34,000 in genuinely discretionary capital. You look at the page. $34,000, which is, you understand now, the actual size of $100,000, not as a symbol or a mythology or a proof of something, but as a force operating in the real world with real friction. It is not the number you thought you had. It is not nothing. Not because $100,000 is not real money, because real money, the amount that removes the question entirely, is a number nobody agrees on, but which everyone agrees is larger than this. Bertrand shakes your hand at the door. It's a good start, he says. He says this without irony. He means it. You believe him because he has no reason to say otherwise, and several professional reasons not to. It changes your options, not your life. Part 4. The room. You are 28. It is a Wednesday morning in November, and you are in the break room at work when Mireille comes in, pours herself a cup, and then turns and looks at you in a way that makes clear she has been deciding whether to say something for several days. Can I ask you something? She says. Sure, you say. Are you doing well? Financially? You hold your cup. Getting there, you say. She nods slowly. I heard something, she says. She does not say what she heard or from whom. You have told 4 people. Dex. Your mother, obliquely. Mireille, who just confirmed she already knows. And your landlord, inadvertently, when you offered 3 months up front. Dex. Your mother, obliquely, in a phone call where you said, I'm in a better place financially, and she read through it in 4 seconds. A colleague named Mireille, who asked you directly in the break room one afternoon, in a way that made lying feel worse than the alternative. And your landlord, inadvertently, when you offered 3 months up front. Now it is known. This is the first practical lesson money at this level teaches you. You cannot contain the information the way you imagined you could. The information moves without your help. What changes is not what people say to you. What changes is the half-second before they say it. Mireille calls you 3 weeks after the break room conversation. She is looking, she says, for a short-term arrangement. $3,000, repaid within 60 days. A gap between a payment going out and a payment coming in. She says arrangement rather than loan, which is the precise linguistic adjustment people make when they believe the amount is beneath the dignity of a formal word. She says, I know you've got it. Not accusatory, simply factual. Mireille, you say carefully, I'm not in a position to right now. A pause. I understand, she says. She does not understand. The call ends in 30 seconds. The working relationship continues, imperfectly, for another 4 months before she leaves for a different role, which is the quiet violence of a number that places you between worlds without belonging fully to either. Not because people are malicious, because money at every level creates a gravitational field that the people around you feel before you have finished deciding how to describe what you have. The field does not require disclosure. It requires only that you exist at a slightly different altitude than the people nearest you. They sense the altitude before you explain it. Your mother calls in December. Are you being sensible? She asks. You say yes. That kind of money can disappear, she says. She is not wrong. She is also describing a relationship with money built in a different decade, in a different cost of living, with a different set of fears. Which is how money creates distance between people who love each other, not through greed, but through a gap in translation that neither side knows how to close. Money at this level does not change people. It reveals them. Part 5. The decision. You are 29. It is a Saturday morning in February, and you are at the kitchen table with coffee that has gone cold. Your laptop is open. On it is a document you have been rewriting for 6 weeks, through 7 drafts that differ primarily in the order of the options and the confidence of the language. The question is not whether to do something with the money. The question is what doing something reveals about what you believe money is for. Every option on the list carries a version of you inside it. The Broad Market Index Fund says, I believe in patience over cleverness, and I am willing to disappear into the average return. The Investment Index's Venture says, I believe in people over systems, and I have done enough research to justify calling it a decision rather than a feeling. The $12,000 course in financial strategy that promises to pay itself back within 18 months says, I believe I am not yet the person I am trying to become, and I am willing to pay someone else to close the distance. The trip, Lisbon, then Tbilisi, then a week in a small town in southern Japan that appeared in an article you bookmarked 14 months ago, says, I believe that how you think in the next decade matters more than what you accumulate in the next quarter. You call Dex. What would you do? You ask. With 100 grand? A pause. Split it, he says. Index funds, emergency fund, one actual thing. What's the thing? Travel. Something you can't undo. Something that changes how you think before you make the next decision. That's a very expensive way to describe a vacation. It's also accurate, he says. You close the laptop. You open it. You move money into 3 accounts over 40 minutes. The allocation is not brave and not cowardly. It is the thing you can commit to without immediately wanting to revise. That turns out to be the right criteria. The decision is the first honest thing you will say about yourself. Part 6. The morning after. You are 31. It is a Wednesday in April. The flat is the same flat. The kitchen is the same kitchen. The coffee comes from a bag that costs $11, which is the same bag you bought when you had nothing, and which you still buy now, which is either continuity of character or evidence that you have not changed as much as the number suggested you would. The money is redistributed. Some of it is in a broad market index that has done slightly better than nothing and slightly worse than you hoped, which is, Bertrand told you on the phone in January, exactly what it should be doing at this stage. Some of it cleared the credit card balance in a single transfer that took 45 seconds and felt almost anticlimactic. Some of it paid for Lisbon and Tbilisi and 7 days in a small town in southern Japan where you walked for 4 hours every morning on roads without cars and ate every meal in a restaurant with 6 seats run by a woman who cooked everything herself. On the last morning, she brought you coffee before you asked. "You are very quiet," she said. "I'm thinking," you told her. "Good," she said. "Most people who come here are running away from something. Thinking is better." She went back to the kitchen. You have not fully decided whether she was right about you. What $100,000 does not do. It does not stop the anxiety. It relocates it. Before, you were afraid of not having enough. Now you are afraid of losing what you have and returning to not having enough, which is the specific tax that a first accumulation places on you. A tax no one mentions, because mentioning it sounds like a complaint. And complaining about money you have is a category of ingratitude the world has no patience for. It does not change how the bank processes your application compared to the man behind you with $4 million. It does not change your posture in a room full of people who have more and know it. It does not remove the question. It defers the question to a later, slightly calmer version of you. What it actually does, the function it performs underneath everything else, is buy you time. Not luxury, not freedom, not the life you were building the mythology around in a bar on a Thursday in March. Time. The time to make a slower decision. The time to say no once without immediate consequence. The time to sit at a kitchen table on a Wednesday with coffee going cold and think, without that thought being interrupted by a number that does not exist yet. That is the whole thing. That is the actual product. The person who had it is still here. Somewhere, a 26-year-old is in a bar on a Thursday night. He is building the mythology.